Hello peeps and welcome back to another episode of my Genshin guide. And as you know from the thumbnail, today is about our all-time weight t-shirt contest winner, Xiao. Let me assure you that I am someone who got Xiao on his first emergence banner, which is 1.3 maybe, I don't remember the number. And from then on, he became my main DPS and I have him in two of my accounts. Also, I play Xiao a lot, so you can trust me on this. I'll discuss everything about him in this video, his weapons, his viable builds, also how to play him optimally. So without any further ado, let's get started.
愚か者め。黙れ。ありえない。
So Xiao is a selfish hyper carry who needs decent to high investments of resin to do what he does the best. He also needs a healer support of some kind and also a shielder if possible so that he won't get interrupted between his DPS window. But he is also someone who can clear almost all the content in the game quite easily if you build him properly, of course. With that being said, let's start with his weapons. And lucky for our emo boy, he has quite a lot of viable options. Almost all the DPS columns are viable for him. I'll rank them based on the damage output he'll get and also give you my own opinion. At the very bottom grade, we have the 3-star option, White Tassel. The only reason I have ranked this weapon in here because it has crit rate as its secondary stat. Almost all the 4-star weapons will perform better than this. If you are a very early player and manage to get Zhao in this banner, I mean yeah, you can use this weapon for now, but remember, you have to replace it later on for sure. Among the 4 stars, the ER polearms will be a bit less favorable than the polearms having crits or attacks as its substat. ER polearms include Favorius Lance, Prototype Stargator, and the Catch. Well yeah, you can argue that Zhao needs energy recharge quite a bit, which is true as Zhao has some energy problems, but it can be solved by running an Animo battery on the team and by doing the rotations optimally, which I'll discuss in the later section of this video. As of now, I'll move on with the weapon list. So ER weapons are viable, but not the best option for Zhao, and you're better off giving the ER weapon to your support polearm characters like Zhongli, Shenhe, Zhangling, Homa, there are a lot of them. Above the ER weapons, I'll place these 3 attack percentage secondary stat polearms that are Lithic Blade, Royal Spear, and the Wave Breaker Swing. Both the Lithic Spear and the Royal Spear can be really good for Zhao as they have quite high base attack, but the only problem is the passive is difficult to proc. For Lithic Spear, you have to use 4 leeway characters on your party to get the maximum benefit out of its passive, which on paper sounds easy, but most of Zhao's best supports are not from leeway. And the Royal Spear's passive is not very consistent, so you lose a lot of DPS. For the Wave Breaker Spin, its passive is completely useless for Xiao, so it's even bottom than these two. But of course, you can use all 3 of these and your Xiao will be decent. But for a broken f2p Xiao, you must go for these 2 polearms. I mean, one of them is not very f2p, but for the light spenders, whatever. Yeah, they are Blackcliff polearm and the Deathmatch. Even both being best 4-star option for Xiao, the Deathmatch tops the Blackcliff pole. Even if the Deathmatch has no base attack, the Deathmatch passive is always active, unlike the Blackcliff pole where you have to kill enemies to get attack stacks. But if you manage to get all the stacks, it can even surpass the Deathmatch. As for the physical damage bonus weapons like Crescent Pike and the Dragon Spine Spear, they only work for a physical Xiao build, but I don't know why would anyone go for it, as physical Xiao would be a lot inferior than the Xiao's prime build. As for the 5-star weapons, the Skyward Spine and the Engulfing Lightning can be good but won't be the best in slot as I told you about the ER weapons, and you'll be better off using them on your supports. Even using a 4-star weapon like a Deathmatch and the Blackcliff pole will be better option for Xiao over there. Then comes the Vortex Vanquisher and the Calamity Queller. They are better option than any 4 stars, and the Vortex Vanquisher will be good with a shielder on your team like Noel or Zhongli, even Thoma and Diona. As for the Zhao's best weapons, the Primordial Jade Spear and the Staff of Homa tops every other weapon in the game. The Jade Spear is a more consistent weapon on Xiao, whereas the Staff of Homa is good overall, but becomes broken when Xiao is at low HP. But overall, I would say the Jade Spear is a better option than Homa, as Xiao generally needs a healer in his team, like Jean or Bennett, because he loses HP every second in his burst. In longer fights, like in Spiral Abyss, if you don't use a healer in your party, because you are using Homa, your Xiao will end up dead before the fight ends. So this is the overall weapon tier list for Xiao. It took quite a lot of time to explain, isn't it? Now, with the artifact sets. I generally recommend one Xiao build, which is 2-piece Viridescent Wearer and 2-piece Glad or Shimenama, which I use. Xiao has no set particularly built for him, so we have to use this makeshift build. Hopefully someday Miyuhi will release a set just for him. You can also use 2-piece Glad and 2-piece Shimenama if you have, but having 2-piece Viridescent Wearer is just more damage. There's also a set which I have seen people using it, and it really puts out more damage output than this build, which is 4-piece Shimenawa's Reminiscence. But it is really very hard set to play on Xiao, and you have to change your playstyle from the normal Xiao playstyle. Even though the rotations won't be optimum, and you'll need a lot more ER on your Xiao. Just so you know, the 4-piece Shimenawa's Reminiscence is a set to be used on those characters who do not depend on their burst, like Yoimiya of course. But yeah, you can use it on Xiao, but your rotations will be really difficult to pull off. Let me tell you, I have never used 4-piece Shimenawa on Xiao because it is really pain in the ass, and I cannot explain the optimal rotations for Shimenawa. So I recommend going 2-piece VV and 2-piece Glad or Shimenawa until MiHoYo makes a set just for Xiao. For the main stats, Flower and Plume are always the same, and look for better substats like crit, attack percentage, and a little bit of ER here and there is also good. For Sands, go with an attack Sands. Again, it can be argued that an ER Sand is needed for Xiao, but as I explained before, ER needs can be fulfilled by having an Anemo Battery in the party and doing your rotations optimally. So you'll be doing far better with an attack Sands, as Xiao is a DPS and needs so much attack to pop off. For Goblet, definitely an Anemo damage bonus. You can use an attack percentage Goblet if you do not have an Anemo damage bonus. For Circlet, crit rate or crit damage, whatever you need more. But I'll recommend to keep around 65 to 70% crit rate on him first before stacking on more crit damage on him, as it will be optimum. As for the stats, my Xiao has around 68% crit rate with above 220% crit damage. I have 126% ER, and you can have plus minus 10 and you still won't have any issues. Anemo damage bonus is 61.6% like usual. My attack is 2240 with Staff of Homeless, Staff of Homa, while having HP over 50%. And below 50% HP, it would go up to 2600. And EM doesn't matter on your Xiao. Okay, so in this section, I'll explain both his talents and how to play Xiao optimally. And all the new Xiao hackers, pay a little bit more attention. I'm starting with his normal attacks. Xiao is a selfish DPS character who only shines when he is inside his burst, but all the attack you'll use while his burst is active scales on his normal attack, or I should say both on his normal attack and burst. So leveling up your normal attacks is your first priority. His elemental skill is he dashes forward, dealing quite a bit of damage, and you'll get around 2 to 3 Anemo particles. You can keep it at low level if you want to, but the scaling on his skill is nice, so you should level it up. Then comes Xiao's burst, which is the bread and butter of his kit. As for his burst, Xiao wears his Yaksha mask, which gives him a pogo stick. Just kidding. Which gives him superhuman jump and also turning all his damage into Anemo damage. But while he is in his burst, Xiao theoretically loses a percentage of his health. And make sure you level his burst to at least level 7, as the decay in health reduces from 3% of max health to 2%. As a bonus info, remember, you won't die from decay during the burst, even if it takes your Xiao to 1 HP. But why even bothering taking that risk, isn't it? And yeah, Xiao has a higher energy cost than a lot of DPS out there. But if you play him optimally and do your rotations well, I know I'm saying this like a million times in this video, but his burst will charge very faster. Even sometimes it charges right after the cooldown ends. And I'll show you how. As I told you before, Xiao Z produces 2 to 3 energy particles with a single charge. And I have 2 charges as I'm C0. So what should you do is use your skill 2 times and then use your burst. And look how you start your plunges with having around 20% of your burst already. Keep in mind that his E won't produce any particle if you are inside his burst. I'll show you.
C0 ナブ
So always use his E's before you activate the burst. Now let me show you one complete burst duration and you'll see how big of a difference it creates.
ここだ
And if I use my entire team like this, he gets his burst back right after the cooldown ends.
くだらないわめくがいいはっここだ ここだ
But this team is an expensive team to get, I understand, and most of you might be free to play, so you might not have an albedo or Zhongli, which is normal. So for you, having an anemo battery is important, like sucrose or venti, and you can funnel the anemo particles to your jaw, and you're good. Like this, one more piece of information you should know, and it's about the plunges. There's a high plunge damage, a low plunge damage, and just plunge damage. I don't know how to explain this in words, so I'll just show you.
くだらない無駄だ消えろ
So this is the high plunge and this is a low plunge. High plunge, low plunge. High plunge, low plunge. I hope you get the idea. As for the just plunge damage, no matter what you go, for a high plunge or a low plunge, this will be an extra damage dealt to the enemy. And I hope you get all this. So wait, there's one more thing. If you are dealing with just a single enemy, there is a way to increase your DPS, and that is weaving a normal attack or a charge attack in between your plunges like this.
無能
So the plunging will cancel your charge attack animation and you will deal a bit more damage per se. You can also do this when you have multiple enemies, but it sometimes gets trickier to pull because the enemies move away.
無能
But you can. I generally prefer to just spam his plunge as my ping is always high to where it's quite a pain to use charge attack in between. So I spam the plunge and just walk away. Oh, I almost forgot about the passive talents. The first passive increases your DPS. The longer you stay inside your burst, the damage increases 5% every 3 seconds up to 25% max. And his burst has a duration of 15 seconds, so you will only reach the max stacks on the last 3 seconds of the burst. Still, this passive is really good. Second passive is after using his dash first time, you'll get 15% more damage on his dash the next time. Honestly, for a C0 Xiao, this passive is not that good. Even for a C1 Xiao, it is somewhat good, I guess. But to get the value out of this burst, you need a C6 Xiao. And for his last passive, it reduces stamina consumption while climbing, so it's good for exploration and stuff. Moving on to his constellations, I have no constellations on any of my account because hardcore free to play. but I can still explain them. C1 gives one more charge to his E. You think this constellation is good because more damage, which is not. I mean yes, but not exactly because it's more damage, but one more E charge means more enemy particles. And if you use Zhao like I told you before, you will have even less energy issues for Zhao, at least in his first burst window. C2 adds 25% ER when Zhao is off field, and again, just like C1, it resolves the energy issues even more. But of course, Xiao is a selfish DPS and you build your team around him, so he will be on field for the longest. So C2 is not as good as C1. The C3 and C5 are talent level increase, as you know, with C5 being better as it's for his burst. As for the C4, I really don't know. I thought it was a joke, but it's not. Like defense increase can be good in some scenario, but as for a C4, it's pretty much a joke. And obviously, you'll be always using a shielder for Zhao, which makes this constellation even more useless. The C6 is the best, and by best, I mean the best constellation, not only for Zhao, but the best constellation in the entire game till now. This makes Zhao so fun. I never use a C6 Zhao personally, but I've seen a lot of C6 Zhao clips, and it looks so amazing. Moreover, the DPS increase it gives to Zhao is also massive. So basically, when you're inside the burst, hitting a plunge damage to more than 2 enemies will grant you one more charge of E, and he can spam the E ignoring the cooldown. It's a very fun constellation, And if you're going for his C6, no need to hold back. But again, his C1 and C6 are the major spikes on his DPS potential. Yes, C1 doesn't give a lot of damage, but gives you more ER, which in turn means more DPS. So yeah, but if you are not aiming for a C6, then stopping at C1 or even stretching it up to C2 is the most reasonable thing to do. And I recommend it, of course. And with all this out of the way, we are finally moving to the most important part of using a decent to OP Xiao is the team compositions. First of all, let me remind you that you can pretty much use Xiao with any healer and shielder. But the team comps I'm about to explain in this section is by keeping Spiral Abyss in memory, as it is the hardest content in the game, and if you're using Zhao, you have to bring your best in there. The first comp I like the most is this Zhao International comp with Zhongli as the shielder and burst support, and albedo to generate particles and off-field damage. Also, I use Gene not only for healing but also to trigger enemy resonance. Also, having 2 Geo gives Geo resonance, so more damage inside shields. As this is an expensive team, the second team I recommend is Xiao, Zhongli, or any shielder you have, Sucrose as an anemo battery, and Bennett for everything else. The thing is, Bennett is the key in this team because he can boost Zhao's damage by a lot to where not having Geo Resonance doesn't mean a thing. But the only issue is you can only plunge inside Bennett's Q. When it ends or the enemy moves out of it, which they will eventually, as Zhao's plunges will push them away, you'll lose a lot of DPS. So there is quite a lot of RNG and DPS in this team, but still, I think this team is really good. Also, you can make quite a lot of different team comps like this, depending what characters you have already built. Like, you can use a Fischl if you don't have an albedo in the team like this, or Juggling can also be used. Just use a burst and start plunging. But these teams do not have good synergy with them, and you can better use your Fischl or Juggling on other teams where they can shine, as their own DPS is quite significant. Also, by any chance, if you happen to have a Raiden, you still can use her with Zhao. They of course do not synergize well, but when Zhao's burst is down, you can use Radiant's burst and get your Zhao's burst back and you can continue this cycle. But I'm reminding you again, having a shielder is important and having a healer of some sort is even more important. Healers are the must pick on Zhao comps. And with this, the Zhao guide ends here. And now you can enjoy a showcase while I clear the spiral limits using my Zhao and company. I have used the Zhao International comp in most of the part and Zhao with Sucrose and Bennett in the rest of them. I do not use Raiden, Official or Zhangling with Zhao because I generally use them on different teams. And with that being said, sit back and enjoy the showcase.
さけ今こそ誕生の時だここまで誰でもやめろはっ無能ここだ無能行くぞ今回は大物が釣れたよはっここだ無能無駄だここまではあやはりダメだ行くぞ天道ここにあり剣女盤石疑似ようか風よ私に応えるのだいざ勝負異形を見届け西洋鍋ここだ無能ここだ無能天理チョークくだらない隙あり創世の術冥王形成剣に誓う天道万象疑似ようか天理チョーク創世の術冥王剣西洋鍋はっここだ無能行くぞ無能ここだ無能無駄だ岩山八九 天道万象疑似ようか。
風の神よ、我らを導きたまえ。
わめくがいい。ここだ。せここだ。はっせ無能無能剣女盤石。天道ここにあり。創世の術冥王牽制。剣女盤石。避けくだらない西洋ナブ。ここだ。無能ここだ。無能無能無能はっ天理チョーク。難攻不落。疑似ようか。今こそ誕生。
風よ、私に応える。
無駄だ。消えろ。はっここだ。無能はっここだ。だ岩山八九。創世の術天道ここにあり。異形を見届けよ。
剣に誓う。いざ。
くだらない。岩山八九天理チョーク。わめくがいい。無能ここだ。無能ここだ。疑似ようか。冥王牽制へ。くだらない。天道ここにあり。岩山八九。避け
風よ、私に
わめくがいい。ここだ。ここだ。無能いえここだ。ここだ。はっくだらない。天理チョーク。剣女盤石。創世の術異形を見届け。無能行くぞ。へっくらえいえひゃっ岩山八九。避けいえ無駄だ。西洋ナブ。ここだ。無能天道ここにあり。剣女盤石。疑似ようか。冥王牽制。
剣に誓う。いざ。
はっわめくがいい。ここだ。無能ここだ。
7号式モジュール。
剣女盤石天理チョーク。全力攻撃だ。無駄だ。西洋ナブ。無能ここだ。無能無能無能難攻不落。
ア 安全距離確認
くらえ天道万象みんなは俺が守るくだらない消えろここだはっ無能ここだ無能ここだ無能
無双の風シミュレート吸引テスト開始
くらえみんながそばにいてくれる行くぞ西洋鍋ここだ天道ここにあり
安全距離確認吸引テ6308式ユニット
くだらない燃えろ岩山八九
7号式モジュール
くらえやっへっみんなは俺が守る消えろ無能ここだここだくだらない
吸引テスト開始へい
天道万象
安全距離確認
せえみんながそばにいてくれるわ
63
わめくがいいここだ